National Arts Club NAC at Home program. My name is Angela Louie. Thank you so much for joining us. For those who are unfamiliar with the National Arts Club, we are a 501c3 nonprofit based in New York City with a mission to stimulate, foster, and promote public interest in the arts and to educate the American people in the fine arts. Annually, the club offers more than 150 free programs to the public, including exhibitions, theatrical and musical performances, lectures, and readings. For more information about the National Arts Club, you can visit us at nationalartsclub.org or find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Today, we go into the world of fashion illustrations with artist, designer, and illustrator Audrey Schilt. Here is a little about Audrey. Audrey Schilt has worked with Halston, Bergdorf Goodman, and Ralph Lauren, as well as other leading fashion houses in the industry. Her design history includes designing for fashion and movie icons, such as Jacqueline Kennedy, Gwyneth Paltrow, Emmy Rossum, and Julianne Moore. Her collaborations include music notables such as Busta Rhymes, Kanye West, Damon Dash, and Just Blaze. We'll leave a link for her lovely designs in the chat box. It's audreyschilt.com. She's having this big relaunch of this website on April 1st. So definitely check it out tonight and on April 1st. I encourage you to take a look at some of her gorgeous artwork on display there. So without further ado, I want to say welcome, Audrey.
Thank you for having me.
We're so happy to see you virtually. We can't, honestly, Audrey, we can't wait to see you in person. And we'll see a lot of your gorgeous illustrations in the presentation in a moment. But you know, what is striking to me now is that you are surrounded by such beautiful artwork right now. Can you tell us a little bit about what you have in back of you?
Well, this is my studio out in Quogue in the Hamptons,
Mm-hmm.
and I do a lot of my painting out here now. What I have behind me right here is one of my larger canvases of what I call behind the scenes with Ralph Lauren. That's Claudia Schiffer and some of the people that I wanted to journal. I have multiple journals that I used to sketch in, and eventually thinking I'm going to put it to canvas. So I started to do that a couple of years ago. On this side, I have my picture of me, Halston, and Tom Fallon from my days at Bergdorf Goodman and doing Halston's hats. And that's a sketch of Halston right there. So I have these beautiful memories. That's my Ralph Lauren book and portrait I did of Ralph. And I'm just surrounded by a lot of fashion illustrations, my first love, and just beautiful artwork. I love the artwork of others, and including myself.
You know, but it's so, I mean, you've led such a big life in art and in fashion illustration. So let's talk a little bit about how you first became interested in art. When was that, and how did you discover your love for art?
I think I always loved art. My mother used to say I was born with a crayon. I did a portrait of Abraham Lincoln when I was in the 2nd or 3rd grade that hung in the auditorium. And I couldn't believe that somebody would actually hang my work up on the walls. And I guess it kicked in from there. I used to love to draw horses and portraits. And it was just something I think I was born to do. I never really chose it. It chose me.
That's such a fantastic quotable quote. And, you know, because you discovered it at such a young age, you actually became, you know, one of the youngest fashion illustrator working with these major stores and designers. What was that like for you to be, you know, so talented, so young, and working with these huge names?
It was, I mean, I don't know if I even realized anything. I was kind of very, they just threw me out there and I worked. I Going to Halston was like, I was just in like a land that I had never experienced before. All these like famous people came up and I didn't know they were famous. I couldn't care less, you know, what they were. All I wanted to do was dance. And it was, I thought it was fun. I mean, I remember thinking it's fun, but it was scary for me. I was very shy. And I didn't really know how to behave. I didn't know the protocol. I was very like a fish out of water.
Right.
You
It
know, I came
sounds
from a small town in Long Island. I'd never had any art lessons. I was on a doubt list at FIT. They had 36 students that were chosen, and I was the 37th. So if anybody dropped out, I got in, and that's how I got in. Otherwise, I really didn't have any choices.
It almost sounds like there were a series of events that happened in a specific order at a specific time. And and then suddenly you found yourself working with one of the biggest names that, so many people dream of working with.
And I didn't know who he was. I just, I was actually, I didn't get a job for 8 months after graduating. I didn't get a job for 8 months. Everybody was working but me because I was too good for the lesser jobs and not good enough for the higher end jobs. So he hired me. There was a job opening. It was a freelance job for $1 a hat. There were 85 hats to sketch. And I went up there and I was nervous. He put a couple of hats in front of me, no direction really. He says, sketch the hats. I was like, okay. And I think it was a couple of weeks later, I finished the 85 hats. And I said, okay, I'm done. And he said, no, you're not. I actually want to hire you full time.
Wow.
He said, how much money do you want? And I said, I don't know. And $85 was a lot to me.
Mhm.
I'd never made that much money in my life. So I said, okay, I'll take $85 a week. He said, okay, you got it. And he hired me. And that's where I was for 2.5 years, working for Halston and his hats. And I did his first women's collection, sketches for his women's collection. And it was like he introduced me to everyone in fashion and, just celebrity, not, and it was like I wasn't really that interested in fashion. And but he said it was really important for me to meet these people because you have to have relationships in order to build your career. So I went along with it. And he developed that for me. He helped me develop that. He was very, very generous, really. He told my father that I was his ray of sunshine.
Wow.
And I was so unopportunistic. I had no idea about anything, really.
Well, in a way, it sounds also like he trusted that, you were just so open. And frankly, I think it's an extraordinary story where you were sketching for him these series of hats and then not realizing you were in an interview with him at that moment. And
Yeah,
you got the full-time offer. That's almost unheard of today, really.
right.
But
It was probably unheard of then too, but I think it was just a meeting of two creatives that, he felt comfortable with me. It's like I wasn't opportunistic. I didn't even care if I stayed there. I didn't even know who he was, so we just got along really well. We hit it off very well.
I absolutely want to talk a little bit more and unpack that when we get to your works about the role these important relationships have in building your career, because certainly since meeting Halston, you've built up a body of work and you've built up a lot of trusting relationships with those who would continue to give you work. And I think that's super important. And it's a super important lesson today for those who might not have that kind of exposure.
And I don't think you should set out to build relationships in a fake way. I think it's very important to be yourself and to be honest. I think that's what I really was. I didn't know how to just, connect with people on a level of like, oh, you're supposed to do this, or you're supposed to do that. I think I came from my heart, and I think it's important to stay with your heart. When you're interacting with people, be who you are.
That's such great advice. And as you started working with Halston and developing more artwork for him, you sort of, I imagine you must have developed a sense of confidence. And after that, you worked with Ralph Lauren as his VP Creative Director of the women's collection. How was it? How was it to work for him in that capacity?
Well, I actually grew into that role. I did not come on staff as that. I was once again very naive, never been in a board meeting before with other creatives. And I think I got along with him as well because I think I was pretty much myself, good or bad. And being with other creatives was a rude awakening for me. But I came to realize that it was a blessing. It was truly great to be able to meet other creatives and work with them. Up until that point, I worked pretty much alone. There wasn't like big staffs where I was working. I freelanced a lot for Bergdorf Goodman. So coming on board at Ralph Lauren was different and difficult because I didn't know how to behave, and board meetings, protocols were not really my strength. But I think in the end, in hindsight, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. As a growing point.
I love the theme also you have throughout your growth in your career of learning as much as you can in every role, which is such I think a key part of you growing your role bigger and bigger as you grew your career. I want to remind the audience that we are going to have a Q&A with Audrey at the end with audience questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat box and we'll do our very best to get to all of them. Audrey, I want to ask you, you have worked with two very different designers and you've worked with department stores. How would you say your style as an artist evolved throughout your career? So if you were to look back, what would you say were key inflection points or key trends in your artistry?
Well, I started in the 60s. So the trend was 60s and it was Antonio and the flying hair. I mean, that's what I did for Bergdorf BG ads. Very stylized. In school, I loved realism. I like to be very realistic. I let go. I really blew with the wind. I know that may not be the, proper way to describe what I do, but I think with Halston, it was a cross between, I didn't stylize with Halston. I really drew the way I wanted to draw as an illustrator. I was purely an illustrator with him. That was my first love. And the designing part, that came just as a fluke because I sketched the hats wrong. I didn't know how this hat should be worn on the head. So I created what I thought it should be. Then he would like it, so he would make the hat. But it really was never anything intentional as a designer. I think a lot of illustrators have that natural ability to design because they're artists, But it wasn't until I got to Ralph Lauren that I really started to learn about design and styling and and I grew in my craft. I had so many wonderful people around me, so talented. I had my friend Alistair, who was brilliant, a brilliant illustrator designer. And I was just surrounded by these extremely stylish, talented people. And I think I was like a sponge. I just picked it up and I incorporated it into what I knew. And it was like a rebirth. I came out, you know, sketching differently. I went back to school to learn pattern making and draping because when I would draw the illustrations, my back views did not match my front views. So sometimes the dress couldn't be made the way I sketched it. So it would be like, hey, this doesn't match. So I really needed to understand more about the construction of the garment.
Right.
So I went back to school and I took pattern making and draping, and it definitely enhanced my ability to sketch, you know, to create the garment the way it was or the way it should be. So that was very, very important to my growth, you know, and I don't think I would have done that had I not been at Ralph Lauren.
That's fantastic to know. We're definitely going to see a little bit of that. I don't think I can hold back the wolves any longer because everyone is demanding to see your artwork. So I'm going to we're going to start with this one, which is your sketch for Halston. First, this is so beautiful, Audrey. Can you tell us a little bit about what this is, what you were looking at when you were sketching, and just some context on this?
Okay, this sketch, you know, a lot of my memory is not vivid, but I remember this was a sketch that was done, I think it was editorial. I think Halston created this hat for probably a shoot in a magazine. But what's funny about it is I loved it then and I love it now because it fits so aproposly into the, is that a word? Apropos into now with the pandemic. I thought, oh, this could be a great hat to come back with. You know, if we wanted to do hats, a woman could actually wear this hat now and she'd be covered for the virus.
Right, exactly.
I thought, but for then it was really, it probably was a theme that came from a magazine that asked Halston to design a hat for a layout, you know, and this was probably one of those hats.
Ah, beautiful.
But if you go back for a second, please. Can you go back? It's not important, but I was just, if you notice, this is where I wanted to be the illustrator. I focused on the eyes. This is for all you illustrators out there. I wanted to make the most beautiful woman wearing the hat. My focus was not on the hat. My focus was on making that woman be the most beautiful in that hat. And that's the illustrator's job.
Wow, that's beautiful. Great. Now, this is also so beautiful. Can you tell us about this one? This is so beautiful.
This is funny story. Okay, so this hat was a mink hat. I think he probably gave me a thumbnail sketch of what he wanted because I actually saw the original hat that was featured in the Rienzi Museum in Texas. There was an exhibit, a Halston exhibit, and they had the actual hat there, and the hat was so much smaller than what I actually have here. But I probably didn't understand the hat, so I made it bigger, and I made this part bigger, thinking, oh, maybe this goes over that. You know, at the end of the day, the hat was sitting on the head, very small in the back of the head, and hung like a little scarf down over here.
Yeah.
So this was an example of me taking the hat that should have been sketched and doing my own version, and then Halston saying, I really like that, let's make that hat also.
Yeah.
So it played, not that I intentionally designed the hat, but I just didn't know how it was worn. And he was smart enough to use that and allowed me the space to keep doing that because it gave him another perspective on how a younger person would see this hat worn. And he had a lot, his eye was always on young people. He loved young people.
Mm. Now look at that. That would work well today also, right?
Yeah, that's another one that is so apropos for this day and age is the visor. And that was another period of time when Courage was in, visors were worn, and the magazines, I think this hat was probably in one of the magazines, I'm not sure, but I think it was in a magazine, and it was done for the magazine. I don't think there was a woman actually walking on the street wearing this hat because there was no coronavirus at that time. So, but once again, I loved making the face and making her look beautiful, and you know, it was a fun time for hats. Okay. And okay, this is another pillbox hat. Halston did many pillbox hats with many variations of it. This one I think is, I don't know, it looks like it might have been either a fur or a pattern. He did hats for other people as well, like other designers would come to him for hats. So if they had a swatch of fabric and they wanted a hat to go down the runway, Halston did other people's hats, other designers. So this may have been one of them, but he did many pillbox hats, and I sketched them all different ways. Like I don't know if that's even appropriate for how you would wear the pillbox hat, because I know Jacqueline Onassis wore hers in the back of her head like that. So it was just, a lot of it was, I don't want to say mistakes, but just different ways of working, creating.
Beautiful. Wow.
This is fun.
Yeah.
Now this is another one. I don't remember exactly if that was an actual hat that was made. I'm not sure, because sometimes what happened was he would make a feather pom-pom, you know, or maybe two feather pom-poms, and he would put it together and they would say, make a hat out of it. So I would maybe sketch what he put together, and it became a hat, you know. But I'm sure all of this was probably editorials, not necessarily hats that were worn, but maybe editorial hats for different magazines or photo shoots. But I love this one.
I love your ability to make the hats and the designs so eye-catching and beautiful, and also complement the beauty of the person.
Well, I think that's part of the illustrator's job, you know, is to make the hat or whatever it is you're sketching more beautiful than it actually is. You know, you take certain liberties. It's like artistic license. And during this period, it wasn't intentional, but I learned how to do that. I learned how to intentionally take something that was out there and make it more beautiful, or, you know, more interesting, you know, backgrounds or shadows. I used shadows. Maybe I made the collar bigger, you know, or the sleeve bigger, exaggeration of the fullness of the skirt. I learned how to do that, you know, just by you know, situations like this where it started to be acceptable. Like Halston would say, oh, I love that. And then it was like, oh, you do? Like, let me see if I could do this intentionally now, because it wasn't intentional. So I learned how to do that. That was sort of a growth.
Beautiful.
This hat was stunning. This was also in the Rienzi Museum in Austin, Texas, in the Halston exhibit. It was just a beautiful hat. This was definitely an illustration. I did not have anything to do with the design of this hat, or no mistakes, nothing. This was just an illustration of this beautiful hat, very much in keeping with you know, the Audrey Hepburn, Breakfast at Tiffany, cocktail hour period of fashion. And it actually, was made for Mrs. Masterson, and she wore it. So this is one of my favorite hats. I think it's gorgeous.
Mm.
And that is, I mean, I don't have a lot to say about this hat, except that it's a variation of the pillbox hat, and Halston would make it, you know, if it was round, he'd make a square. So he did, you know, change the shapes, and he was kind of a sculptor, you know, in his own right. And he would, this might have been, I don't know, it could be fur, like a smooth fur. But there were multiple hats that mimicked the pillbox hat, and the pillbox hat belonged to him. I mean, he became known for the pillbox hat. So this is Black Jets. This is a typical example of what I call a cocktail hat. A cocktail hat being worn by the ladies who lunch. They, you know, they often went to, you know, had cocktail hour. They got dressed up in, you know, beautiful lady dresses and suits. And this is an example of probably the hat that they would wear, or Halston would give them or make for them to wear with an ensemble. It was a lot of fun. There were always like jewels around, you know, he would put together little, you know, if it's lucite or jewels, or he was always embellishing something. So this was one of the hats that I would call this the cocktail hat.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Oh, I love this. This could be my favorite hat. This hat, I think, could work in today. To me, this looks like it was leopard. It was a leopard hat. It was, I think it was featured in a magazine. It was during this time period, but I think it could work so well today. It has like an African feeling, you know, the shape of it has like an African feeling. And I think you put the African fabrics with it. I just see it working on a young woman today. I think it could happen. You know, which I often fantasize, if Halston were alive today, you know, what would he do? And I see him doing hats, but like really more, you know, cooler hats, more modern, more in whatever the feeling is of the moment today. And this to me would be one. And there's Halston. I did this. Oh, I love him. Anyway, he was wonderful. He really was an inspiration, a genius. I mean, he really, he was an artist, you know. I did this sketch from a photograph, actually. And I think he was probably in his 40s at this time. And I have this fantasy of doing a book that you know, of his work, and maybe doing, you know, I have the sketches from his very first collection, so I want to include that in the book, which I also actually had a sketch that I'm showing in this interview of one of the examples of his, from his very first collection. Yeah, Halston took me everywhere. He introduced me to everybody. He was extremely generous. He was an amazing talent. He had charisma. Everybody came up to see him. He just was a very special person. And I was extremely fortunate to have had him as my first mentor. It's amazing to me that God gave me him. Oh, this was, okay, so Jacqueline Kennedy, she came up quite a few times. I actually sketched her from life. And in fact, I'll tell you a little story. She came up and she had her hair done and she didn't want to put the hat on. So Halston asked me to sketch her likeness and then put the hat on her head to show her what it would look like. So I started sketching her and she was chewing gum So when I got to her mouth, I asked her if she would please, stop chewing gum so I could do her mouth. She never said a word, not a word. She just stopped chewing. Then I finished the mouth. I said, okay, Mrs. Kennedy, I finished your mouth. And then she just started smacking the gum around again. And that was it. I was like done with her. She didn't even say goodbye to me. She just sort of walked out and, but that was my claim to fame, that I sketched Mrs. Kennedy from life.
Wow.
And this particular hat is just one of the versions. That's a leather version of the hats. And they sent her, every time she traveled, they would send my sketches to her. She would ask Marietta at Bergdorf for a hat because she would have certain clothes that she wanted to wear a hat with. And Mariette would come to Halston, and Halston would tell me to sketch a certain hat for her. And then it was sent to her. And after she passed away, they sold her hats at Sotheby's, and along with the hats were all my sketches. She had saved all of my sketches. So I was very excited and happy that's where my sketches wound up with of Mrs. Kennedy with her hats. Somebody out there owns them. I don't know who, but it was very exciting for me as a young person, to know that.
What a lovely, unexpected story.
I got a million of them. You got to read the book.
Yes.
This is a photograph. I actually have the negative of this. Halston gave me this photograph. We had a jungle club on the top of Bergdorf Goodman, which Angelo Dongier, the famous Angelo Dongier, he turned all of the air conditioners, these big, enormous air conditioners, ugly, and he turned them into jungle animals. And Halston made a jungle club up there that we used to go up to the top of the Bergdorf roof, and we would have lunch there and talk about hats or clothes or whatever was, interest at that time. And it was so much fun. You see the umbrellas in the background of the photograph. That's where we would have lunch, and other people would come up, and it was a lot of fun. I think they're drinking maybe some wine there too. Mm-hmm. And I made the Jungle Club. Oh, here we go. Okay, no, that was the Jungle Club monkey. I created that for the bash. It calls it Jungle Club Bash. Oh, this was one of the illustrations that I was telling you about from his very first collection. I have I think there was about 12 of them or 15 illustrations that I had done. And this was, you see the pillbox hat, how I put it in the back of the head at that point. I don't even know if I did that right. But that's a Sheila Graham of the Post going to the Truman Capote black and white ball. And Halston, that's the dress from the runway, but that's actually the version that he did for her to wear at the black and white masked ball that she went to. So these are probably the only illustrations in existence of that period of time. I found them in a box, oddly enough, like a carton at the bottom of the carton. And I was so thrilled that I actually had them.
Can you,
I'm sorry, it was Catherine Graham, not Sheila Graham, Catherine Graham.
Can you tell us a little bit about the coloring? How did you put the colors into this beautiful illustration?
Well, I think for this period of time, it was magic markers.
Okay.
Magic markers. I used magic marker and Pentel. They used to have pens that called Pentel. They actually, if you put water on them, they turn blue. But thank God I didn't put water on it. So yeah, that's pretty much what that is. It's done directly. There's no pencil underneath it. I didn't like pencil it and then mark over it. So I did a pretty good job, I have to say. And those are jets, little black jets that are on the dress. It was made out of, it says what it was made out of. It was like wool with black jets. And that's actually what the women wore for luncheons, not luncheons, cocktail time. That was a cocktail dress. This is my, okay, so now we're going to Ralph Lauren.
Ralph Lauren, right.
This is a sketch I did from behind the scenes at Ralph Lauren. I loved sketching the people behind the scenes. I found it very, very interesting. I loved just observing. I used to have journals that were filled with the people that were just doing what they do. I've got tons of journals of all those people. And this particular one was Mario was the pattern maker, brilliant pattern maker. Ralph always was watching, you know, he knew exactly what he wanted. He was always styling it, making sure the fit was correct. And I tried to capture those moments instantaneously, but then I would take a Polaroid so that I could work on it when I got home. So this is what I did. You know, I would have a quick sketch and then I would work on it when I got home. And I really had in my head that eventually I wanted to do a painting. I want to do paintings of behind the scenes because I felt that if I'm captivated by it, maybe other people would be captivated by it. So I actually did a painting of this one in particular, which I love. And I want to incorporate a lot more of these kinds of sketches into my book and to maybe an exhibition that I'm planning to have. And I write down, you know, at the bottom of it, you know, what it was, what I thought of it as the moment, you know, what it was, and the names of the people, you know, that I had forgotten her name, and now I think I still forgot her name. I know what it is, but I'm a little nervous now. So, but I captured the back. Oh, okay. Here's another one. This was, excuse me. This is Mary Tanner. Mary Tanner was a writer who was doing a book on Halston. And she was doing a book on Halston. And that's Trish in the background with Jackie Spaniel and Ralph. They were watching the looks being put together. And I liked her face, and I liked the whole scene. I liked the way it was set up. So I took a photograph of it, and I worked from the photograph. And this is also a preliminary sketch for what I had in my mind as a painting. But I did a lot of these. I have a lot of them. Okay, so this is funny because this is a still life that I loved. It was, I think it's by Matisse. It's the original was by Matisse, and I thought, what a great way to capture Ralph Lauren in the workroom. So I just took some of Ralph's designs and I put it into a drawing that was really inspired by Matisse. So that's what that is. And I still love this drawing.
I mean, those details, so incredible.
Okay, so this is this is more of a sketchy. This was another fitting. That's Kim and I over there. They're fitting a jacket on her. This was Gail Parker and Charles and Janet Shoulder, who she was the head of sales, and then Ralph, and then Buffy is over here. She was picking out the shoes that might go with the outfit. So there was a whole room full of people, and all of these people were playing a part in the movie. I mean, it was basically a movie that Ralph put together, and everybody followed his direction. And but I found it interesting just to watch them all putting it all together. This was an ad. every collection, Ralph would have a page in W or Women's Wear Daily. And it was a full page ad. So to me, this was like my time to shine as an illustrator. But we weren't allowed to really show the clothes. So I came up with this concept of doing the back views. This is a back view of one of the jackets. And I was able to exaggerate and do what I felt. And this was one of the more successful illustrations that I loved. So I'm glad you chose it to show. Okay, so this is busy room. This was, this was so many people in this room with racks of clothes and doing fittings, and Alistair standing there. That's my buddy Alistair. That's Helena Christensen. And he was taking down notes. Buffy would be telling him, maybe what had to be done. And that's Buffy over there. And Rebecca Lustig pinning pants, and Tom Mora, who went on to be the head of Coach. All these young people that came through the doors that would, doing Xeroxing for me, wound up being the heads of different companies, and that's Ralph. And I don't remember who the girl on the right was, maybe Jennifer Starr, I'm not sure. She was the head of, she brought in a lot of the models. And this was an illustration I did for, what's it called? English, it was an English menswear, Dandy. It was called Dandy. And that's Kim Nye. Kim was the muse. We sketched a lot of Kim. She was very inspirational. She became the face of Ralph Lauren for Safari. And she was just beautiful and inspiring. So, and this was a cover that made the catalog. This is another illustration I did. This was also the menswear. Ralph did a beautiful collection of women in men's, really menswear attire. And this is Claudia Schiffer, who walked the runway at that moment. And I made it look like her. So just another illustration. This is Kim Nye again, and one of the illustrations I did for Safari. This really was the epitome of, the trench coat and the Safari look. I love this collection. This was a really great collection. And I really enjoyed making it look like her. This was actually done, this is Maggie Norris Couture. I worked with Maggie on quite a few freelance jobs. And she did the corseted shirt for Michelle Obama, worn here, as you see, on a date with Barack. And she asked me to make it look like her, and I believe she sent it to her. And I really don't know the whole story on it, but that was a great chance for me to do more of my illustrating portraitures. And I love doing, that's my favorite thing to do, is illustrating portraiture and putting the fashion together with that. I love that. This is Emmy Rossum. Emmy was a friend. She grew up in my building. My daughter actually babysat for her. So I got a chance to dress Emmy. And this was for the International Golden Globes. And she was very helpful. She knew a lot about what she wanted. She loved the color red. So I illustrated here, try to make it look fashiony, but more like her. That was, if I was going to make it like a fashion illustration, I tried to lend it to what the person looked like. So this is the sketch that was sent to her. She approved it, and that's the outcome of the sketch.
Wow.
Maybe that was the Academy Awards I saw the Academy Awards, might not have been the Golden Globe. This is the Gwyneth Paltrow dress. Well, there's a little story behind this dress. I had bought a pink magic marker, and I decided to send in the sketches and added the pink magic marker after I put it through the Xerox machine. It came out like a bubblegum pink. And I thought, oh, this is really pretty. I'm just going to send this in to, I was freelancing at the time. So I sent it in and wound up that she picked the pink to go, to be the color of her dress, which was, I felt like I won the Academy Award. And I also designed the, if you go back, the choker around her neck. If you see, it's in my sketch, but she pulled it up higher on her neck and made it into a choker and said that she designed it. And she had Van Cleef and Arpels make it, and her father bought it for her. But I really think that getting the Best Actress Award should have been enough for her. This is Penelope Cruz. I don't remember exactly which movie this was. We made, Penelope was the face of Ralph Lauren for a number of years. And so there were probably almost every movie premiere, we made a dress for her. And she actually liked, I remember this, she liked Emmy Rossum's dress and asked us to do a version of it. So this is the version that we did for her. And that was the sketch that was sent. And I love putting the shadows in the background. I was known for my shadows because I always felt that by putting the shadow, I really created like a drama for the sketch. So I was always interested in the illustration even more than the design. Or equal to the design, but I really loved putting shadows behind the figure. Okay, so this one is another Penelope Cruz design. I was given a piano shawl, a silk piano shawl, and I made it into this dress, and I think it was for Vanilla Sky. Yeah, this was one for Vanilla Sky. So it was just another example. I had long fringes. It was beautiful. This is just the sketch from the Emmy Rossum. Oh, she won the best dress at the Golden Globes in this dress. So this was an amazing accomplishment, to have the best dress at the Golden Globes. This was an amazing thing. And, once again, there she is. So yeah, she was voted best dressed. Ralph Lauren, best in Ralph Lauren. Yeah. And this is Juliana Moore, another of the celebrities. There was so many celebrities that we, send sketches to and, designed gowns. Ralph designed these gowns and, made sure that they were in his style and, the colors, he loves purple. So she wore that. I don't remember exactly where she wore that, but it was so fun to be able to make these sketches for these movie stars and celebrities. It was my favorite part of being there. I loved this. It made me feel really important. Princess Diana, the same. He sent multiple design sketches to her. And I don't know if this one in particular was anything she picked, but it was one of the sketches. There must have been 10 different variations of sketches that were sent to her. And she picked whatever she wanted out of the 10, and then it was made. Every season, Women's Wear Daily ran one of my illustrations, well, for Ralph Lauren. I was asked by Ralph to, put forth a fashion illustration. And once again, it's the back view, so they didn't know what was going on really. And just giving it the feeling of the collection and sending it in. And I got, it was nice to see. This one says, this season is about structure and refinement, Ralph Lauren. So I tried to mimic what his feeling was. Like he would give you the sentence and then you would try to create from that.
Mm.
This is another one, and it says, for fall, there's an emphasis on fine tailoring with a romantic edge. So I tried to make it look velvety and, probably had a menswear touch to it. So I put pinstripe with it, but it was always following a direction and making sure that we didn't give too much away. So I was always giving back views. It was my way of like hiding the secret. This was a joyful time, and this was one of the best collection. I think it's the most memorable, one of the most memorable was the Aviator Collection. It was the most fun to do. It was great. It was Amelia Earhart. We had all these prototypes and direction. I think Ralph loved it as well. I mean, he was very attached to this collection, and you felt it, it came, his energy and his mood came through to you from how he felt about, what he was doing and the collection. And, he loved it so much, he decided to do this book, The Diary of a Collection. And I was very fortunate to have gotten the cover, to illustrate the cover. And that's my signature there, Ralph Lauren. I signed his name. And, came inside the book. There's a section called The Work. And I did a lot of the illustrations in the book. And it was just, this book is so beautiful. I mean, if you could get your hands on one, you're very lucky. I have 2 of them here completely signed. And I think I have number 3. I don't know. This was also in the book. That's one of my sketches, but these are mood boards that we would have the privilege of having in order to be inspired to do more sketches and to do and create more, designs. And, these were things that were put together under his direction. It's like telling a movie, it's like saying, this is the movie, this is the girl that I love. Excuse me. We kind of followed that direction. It made it a lot easier, when there was something inspiring, to go by. And this particular collection was like one of my favorites. I think this is one of the best collections that he ever produced. This was funny, a funny thing, because I was stuck. I didn't know what to do for that W page, or Women's Wear Daily page. And I showed Ralph, I said, Ralph, I don't know what to do with this, this sketch. I don't know what to put. I don't. And he said, he looked at it and he said, just leave it the way it is. It's perfect. And I was like, really? I was like, I thought it wasn't done. He goes, no, it's done. And he ran it the way it was looked. And I think it looks kind of cool. It's like just a simple line sketch and it doesn't give anything away, and it was perfect. So that was, this was another great collection. This was Millicent Rogers. I'm trying to see what, I can't really see. The concho belt. This was genius collection. It was very inspiring. I mean, he just connected with this particular collection, and you just felt it. It just made it so easy to you know, create the silhouettes and create, you know, the girl and the accessories when he was connected to it. You know, some of them, I mean, he's connected to all of them, but some of them just really stood out, like made it, it was easy. It wasn't, there was no labor, oh, let's do this. Oh, maybe that's not right. This was just like smooth sailing. And it left, you know, it leaves memories for yourself as an artist of how you felt about the collection. And this is just a beautiful evening dress that ran in one of the magazines. I don't have a lot to say about it. All of his stuff is very simple and elegant and beautiful. And, you know, it's hard to, it's what I learned was that it's actually more difficult to create something simple and beautiful than it is to make something over the top, you know, interesting. Mm-hmm. So, and he's got his finger on the pulse of how to do that. So I think that's what made me fall in love, that simpleness and that timelessness that I've incorporated into my own work as an artist. This we call the Empire State Building. I think that's what it was called. It was all these beautiful jet beads. It was heavy, but it was an amazing gown that walked the runway for Aviator, which is like one of my favorite collections. And there it is on Kate Winslet in a magazine. It was very editorial, and it was, and we put a lot of them just went down the runway with the Aviator hat that was put on everything. And this is an older photo of Ralph with Kim Nye and all of my, well, Alistair, my sketches in the background. It was just a great time. You know, the sketches were very important to the collection at that time. And, you know, he really appreciated a lot of what the artist did. It was a very artsy time. It was a moment in fact, no other designer worked the way Ralph Lauren worked. He was really a creative force that used artists like nobody else. It was more about the feeling of the collection. And he really appreciated artists. You know, I really felt very appreciated at that time. This is something new. I am collaborating with Genesis. I've been doing paintings where I collaborate with an artist that I admire. He's a poet, but he puts his poetry to art. He combines it. And I don't want to say poetry because it's not like roses are red, violets are blue. It's very deep. He crypts things into his work. And I had done a painting of these two young people in the background, and they were looking, this was during the pandemic, and it was like tears. The foreground is tears, of a sea of tears. And I had finished it, but I felt there was something missing from it. So I called up Genesis and I said to him, I feel like I need something else in this painting. And he looked at it and he said, yes, send it to me. And I sent it to him, and he came back with this splatter, and you know, he added his "We Are One" to it. We've done collaborations before, and we've sold every one of them. They're really, I think one of them is probably going to be in a museum called The Train. But these were his thoughts. When I saw that what Audrey created, I thought it would be wonderful to add some tension, which is why I added so much splatter. During the time of this painting, there was a lot of tension going on in this country. Sprinkle in a pandemic on top of this, and you have a very tricky sea to navigate. So only having the faces in a sea of tears felt too clean. I felt the splatter added a level of tension. We are one, even through all the bewildering things around us, we are one. And I thought that was a really great way of saying what I feel now, you know, as I get through this pandemic, is that we are one. And you know, we should collaborate with one another and include one another in our lives, diversify, not judge. So, you know, without getting soupy, that's what I would like to say, you know, like just help other people. You know, I'm glad that I could be of any kind of assistance to young people who are starting out in the field. You can write me questions, I'll answer them. I'd like to help, you know, because I know it's not an easy business to navigate fashion, you know, and I'm very grateful to all my mentors, especially Ralph Lauren. He was really, I was very blessed to have had him as my mentor. And I want to thank him. You know, I thank Halston as well, but he's not around to hear me. So, but I think I was just very, very fortunate to grow up in a time when it was a little sweeter. I know it's not as sweet now, but I think we can make it a lot sweeter by opening up ourselves to other people and, you know, not being so guarded, you know. That's what I want to say.
Audrey, I just want to say that first, the images that you shared with us are beautiful, and we are so honored to hear your stories, your experience, and listen to the lessons that you're imparting on us. So, thank you so much for that. You know, there are a lot of people who have questions. We're going to go a little bit past the hour because there's just so much demand to hear from you. I'm going to skip my questions and just go directly to the audience questions because there's so many of them. So I want to remind everyone, for those who are watching, we have left a link for Audrey's designs in the chat box. I encourage you to check it out. Some of the things that you've seen today, as well as many others, there will be an unveiling on April 1st. It will be quite an occasion. So on April 1st, she will make them available to people who want to purchase them, to see them and to purchase them. One of the questions that a lot of them ask this same question, which is, Audrey, you are an inspiration to so many people, the way you focus on your art, on the people, on the relationship. So let's turn the tables and ask you, what is your inspiration? Where do your ideas come from?
The universe. I can't really be specific. I sit now with my iPad, which is another aspect of, it's another tool for what I do. I resisted it for many years, but I learned how to use it now. And I basically sit on my couch watching television, and I use my Procreate. I have a pen, you know, pen that goes with it. And honestly, I don't really think a lot about what I'm going to do. I just allow whatever comes to my mind to be put out there. I let it come through me. You know, I don't have anybody telling me, you know, move the button down, you know, pick the button up. I want a higher armhole. I don't have that anymore. So really, it's just me and the universe saying, what do you want to draw? What would you like to show? And I see it as a form of entertainment because I get a lot of likes and questions, you know, and I enjoy that. So I feel like, okay, I'm just going to do whatever comes to my mind. I don't really have, you know, I might be going through a magazine and see something inspiring, and then but I put it away and then I go back to myself. Okay. And I try to just put it out there, you know, the way I feel it. It's a feeling. A lot of my work now is about feeling.
It's interesting that you talked about the app Procreate. We had a few questions here talking about or asking you about your view in the change in both the industry and the craft itself, right? So there's been so uh, much technological change from the way you would now create the art, as well as the way you would get this art out to the people so they can view it, they can get exposure to it. Do you have some views on it? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think one of the frustrations of being an artist that did not grow up with the computer, and did not really have the technological skills that are available now, was not being able to get my stuff out there to the viewer. Setting up my website. I mean, I really needed money in order to pay people to do these things. I didn't know how to do it. So at first I hired people to do Photoshop, to Photoshop my work, but it was very frustrating because it really wasn't me. I felt very disconnected. But now I learned how to do Procreate, and I really feel I still feel connected to my work with it because I'm doing it. Nobody else is doing it. Is it the same as drawing yourself on a pad with a pencil? No, it's not. But it does have its rewards. It's very instantaneous. There's nothing to clean up. I hate cleaning up. And I'm not against it anymore. I used to be, purist, I really love only, the art on paper and using paints and all that. I'm no longer locked into that. And I think opening up your mind to different avenues of creation is okay. It's just progress. You just keep moving forward. You stay younger. You understand when someone talks to you what they're talking about. And I can also help people who don't use Procreate. I can now help you with Procreate, which is a plus. And it goes very quickly. It's like I can knock out 2 or 3 drawings or paintings or whatever you want to call them. I can knock them out really quickly. Where before, if I sat at my easel or something, it took me a long time to do the artwork, So it's a much faster way of getting what I want done. So to answer your question, I'm not against technological advancement. But I don't think you should let go of either.
Right.
I really believe in both. I don't think that you should, not draw and just use the computer, because you do lose something if you don't bring it with you. Mm-hmm. So I don't stay with one thing. I go back and forth. Like I'm going to be painting. That's my next thing. I'm going to be painting, even though I can paint on the computer and you won't know the difference, really. You barely know the difference, but I know the difference. So I feel, no, I've got to be pure. I've got to stick with the purity of it, but I also have to know the advancement of it.
This is a really good theme because I feel like when we listen to your stories, you're constantly open to learning new things and how to continue to advance your craft. So we have a question from the audience, which is, what would you say is the most important thing to learn when entering into design or the fashion industry?
Well, I think, well, as an illustrator, as a fashion illustrator, learn to draw. I see so many fashion illustrators who don't know how to draw. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they think they do. They don't. Okay. Or they don't draw well. I think whatever you do, you have to do it well. If you want to be a fashion designer and the illustration is not that important to you, well, then I can't speak to that. I think everything's important. I think the reason I was as successful as I was because I mastered a lot of areas that other people didn't master as designers, so I was first a fashion illustrator, and I did that really well, and then went on to be a designer, and I went back to school. I mean, I worked at my craft. So I think whatever you choose to do, don't leave out the details, make sure you understand everything about what your craft is, whether it be an illustrator or a designer or both. So keep working at it.
Earlier during your presentation, you mentioned rude awakening. And one of the questions we had from the audience was, what was one of the biggest challenges that you faced in your career?
People. People.
Learning to work with people.
People, understanding people's motivations and not taking it so personally. I have a whole, different way of looking at things now. I was very, very sensitive. So everything was about, and egotistical, everything was about me, so anytime somebody said something or did something, I thought, oh, I don't like that person. They did this, or, and I would hold on to it. And it was really only eat me up, nobody else, Don't do that. Let it go. It's really about, their shortcoming, not about you, and I think it's important that you understand that, so you don't take it to heart, and you don't knee jerk a reaction to it that you might regret later on, and just look at the better side of people. Try to be as positive as you could possibly be. Everybody is struggling, and they just act out because of that struggle. In fact, I did a painting called The Struggle. I didn't put it into this exhibit, but if you want to see it, come to my next exhibit.
That's actually, I wanted to ask you about. At first, that's great advice, not just for career, but for life. And thank you for sharing that. What do you have next on the horizon? What are you working on now?
I'm working on painting. The struggle is one thing I'm struggling with. It's I'm not a painter, so I'm actually having to learn how to paint, which frustrates me, but I'm determined to, I want to study painting now. I did start this big, huge canvas, and it's called The Struggle, and it really speaks to me. And I think it speaks to a lot of people. It's a human experience that people struggle within. And actually, the second part of the title is see if you could find forgiveness in the painting. And I actually encrypted forgiveness into the painting. So you have to look for it. You're not going to see it immediately. So it has a message. And I kind of would like to do, aside from my portraitures, which I love doing portraitures, but I want to do some meaningful paintings, but they'll probably all have some kind of fashion flair to it, because I love fashion. And so, yeah, I mean, I learned a lot about people when I was at Ralph Lauren. I learned so much about people and government, and it wasn't just about learning, the craft of fashion. It was really about learning about life, being around people and interacting with them. You really learn a lot about life, and like I said, if I wasn't so sensitive, I probably would have done better. But I think in hindsight, learning about life is the greatest gift of all. So I'm very grateful.
That's so beautiful. We are so honored to hear you and to learn about your next projects. We are at the end of our program. Thank you for joining us today, Audrey. What a pleasure and honor it is to talk to you. I want to remind our audience that if you are interested in seeing more of Audrey's illustrations, you can find them at audreyschilt.com. The link is in the chat box. There is a countdown to April 1st for an unveiling of this series of artwork that she's going to put on there to view and to purchase. If you're interested in any of our other programs presented by the National Arts Club, you can visit our YouTube channel. You can also go to nationalartsclub.org. I am Angela Louie. This is Audrey Schilt, and thank you for joining us. Good night.
Thank you for having me, Angela. It's very nice. Bye. Thank you for coming.